Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let us continue with our tafsir of Surah An-Nisaa bihawlillahi wa quwwatih. And we are on ayah number 80. قال الله تعالى من يطع الرسول فقد أطاع الله ومن تولى فما أرسلناك عليهم حفيظا. He says, whoever obeys the messenger, then he has obeyed Allah. And whoever tawalla, meaning turns away, then we have not sent you, O Prophet, as a hafiz upon them. So hafiz, one who guards and records everything. So in other words, we have not sent you as someone who records their deeds and takes them to account. Rather, that is what Allah Jalla wa Ala alone does. The messenger's job is simply to convey the message. So reflecting on this ayah, we pick up the vital lesson that obeying the messenger is obeying Allah. So in other words, obeying the sunnah is just as important as obeying the Quran. And of course, we are talking about the authentic sunnah. This is a refutation against those people who deny taking from the authentic sunnah, and they say, well, we'll just stick to the Quran and that is it. Now you see, the ayah is general. It includes every time that the Prophet tells you something about this deen, whether he is reciting the Quran or whether he is speaking from his own ijtihad and his own self. The ayah is general. Whoever obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah. There is a narration where the Prophet ﷺ recited Surah Az-Zalzala in rak'ah number 1 and 2 in Salat al-Subh. The narrator says that he does not know whether the Prophet meant to do this or whether he just forgot. We say the asl, the default rule in things like these, is that it is tashri', he is legislating it, and essentially telling us that it is permissible to recite the same surah in each of the rak'ah. We may also take that the sunnah is of the same level as the Quran in terms of following it, which then would lead us to say that the sunnah can make a takhsis over the generality of the Quran, and it can also make a naskh of the Quran as well, according to the weightier opinion. Now, we may be hard pressed to find an example of the authentic sunnah making a naskh of an ayah of the Quran, but that's a different matter. In theory at least, the sunnah is of such a status that it can make a naskh of a Quranic ruling. As long as the sunnah is authentic, we treat it on the same level as the Quran in terms of obedience and in terms of extracting ruling. Sure, the Quran is superior from the angle that it is the verbatim word of Allah Jalla wa Ala, but that does not have an effect on extracting rulings. So they are two separate things and should not be conflated. We also take the lesson that the Prophet ﷺ is not responsible for this ummah being guided. He is only responsible for conveying the message. But if everyone from the ummah were to turn away, this would not be to the detriment of the Prophet. We also notice a linguistic point. Allah Jalla wa Ala uses the plural to refer to himself. We have not sent you. And this is the royal we. It denotes azama, or the high status of Allah Jalla wa Ala. It does not denote plurality. Ayah 81. وَيَقُولُونَ طَاعَةٌ فَإِذَا بَرَزُوا مِنْ عِنْدِكَ بَيَّتَ طَائِفَةٌ مِنْهُمْ غَيْرَ الَّذِي تَقُولُ وَاللَّهُ يَكْتُبُ مَا يُبَيِّتُونَ فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا. He says, they say, referring to the munafiqun, ta'atun, obedience. That is to say, the munafiqun say, we obey you. Then he says, when they make buruz from you, meaning when they leave your presence, baraza yabruzu means to come out into view. In this context, it means to leave your company. Bayyata This means to plan by night. So a ta'ifa, a group amongst them, amongst the munafiqeen, they plan by night other than what you said. So for example, if the Prophet ordered them to do such and such, they plan by night to disobey him. And he says, Allah yaktubu, writes down, ma yubayyitun, whatever they are planning by night. فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ, so turn away from them, meaning to say, do not punish them. Leave their punishment to Allah Jalla wa Ala. وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and have firm reliance on Allah. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا, and sufficient is Allah as a wakil. A wakil is someone who does some work on your behalf. So Allah is sufficient as a wakil. He will take care of the munafiqeen on your behalf. You do not need to worry about them or make an effort to punish them. Tawakkul is a key term. It means to leave your affairs on Allah. If you're making tawakkul on Allah, and Allah is the only one you can make tawakkul on, because tawakkul is an ibadah. So tawakkul of Allah is leaving your affairs to Allah whilst undertaking the necessary causes to achieve your end. So if you have an exam to take, then you have reliance upon Allah that Allah will enable you to obtain the grades you need, but you must undertake the asbab, the causes for success, which is to study. Okay, so reflecting on this ayah, we may take that whenever Allah Jalla wa Ala speaks about the munafiqeen in the Quran, and much does He speak about the munafiqeen in the Quran, it is only so that we may endeavor not to be like them. It's like a negative role model. Such people are also important, just as important as positive role models. You need to know what to be like and what not to be like. In this ayah, the trait of the munafiqun is that they tell you one thing, then in secret they believe and are saying something else. In other words, they are two-faced. So this is a characteristic and a quality that we need to avoid like the plague, being two-faced. We also learn that you cannot hide anything from Allah Jalla wa Ala. Not only does He know about it, but He's writing it down. And when He says that, Wallahu yaktubu ma yubayyitun, Allah writes down what they are planning by night, of course Allah Himself directly is not writing it down. His angels are writing it down, but they're doing it on behalf of Allah Jalla wa Ala. That's why He links the action to Himself. And from this we can also take that people like the Rafidah, from the sects of the Shia, they say one thing about their deen, but they harbor some different belief in their heart, and they call this taqiyya, to protect themselves. This would be of no use to them, as Allah Jalla wa Ala knows their inner convictions, and it will be brought forth for them in written format on Yawm al-Qiyamah, in their book of deeds, which neither leaves anything small nor big. We may also take that when Allah tells the Prophet to turn away from them, if we lose hope that someone is not going to be guided because they are so embedded and entrenched in their misguidance, then we are simply to turn away from them and not to waste our time with them. We also take the obligation of having tawakkul on Allah Jalla wa Ala. This is an act of ibadah. Therefore it is haram to have tawakkul on anyone other than Allah. Indeed, it is shirk. So for example, if someone is doing some work for you, let's say an electrician or a plumber or a builder and the like, you are not allowed to have tawakkul on that particular worker to do the job for you. Rather, tawakkul must be on Allah alone. Okay, what about this? If somebody is doing some work for you and you tell him, I'm relying on you, is this permissible? Well, if your heart is literally relying on that person, then this is shirk akbar, because you're giving a share of ibadah to other than Allah. So that is a matter of the heart. However, if you utter these words as an encouragement to the one working for you, but your heart is not relying on your worker, rather it is relying on Allah, then hopefully there is nothing wrong with that. However, it is better not to utter such words. You can use alternatives like I have faith in you, which means to say that you believe that this person is able to do this work. So faith here would mean trust. You trust this person, and you're allowed to trust other people. Ayah 82. أَفَلَا يَتَّدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. It begins with أَفَلَا, a question form. Do they not? يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. This means to reflect, from the verb تَدَبَّرَ يَتَدَبَّرُ تَدَبُّرًا. So the idea here is, do they not understand the Quran correctly? He says, if it were from other than Allah, they would have found in it many discrepancies, اختلافا. So examples of this would be contradictions in its meanings. So in one place the Quran says X, and in another place the Quran says Y. It contradicts in its meaning in a way that you cannot reconcile. You would also find some aspects of the Quran being eloquent and other aspects being non-eloquent, linguistically speaking. Sometimes it would make predictions which are correct, and other times it would make predictions which are incorrect. Some rulings contain justice, and other rulings would contain injustice. Because you see, this type of ikhtilaf is from the attributes of human work, not from the attributes of divine work. Also notice a linguistic point in the afala. It would normally have been fa-ala yatadabbarun al-Quran, because the fa is the harf atf. It links one sentence from the one prior to it. But the hamza and the fa swap positions, so it becomes afala instead of fa-ala. And this happens much in the Quran. So reflecting on this ayah, we find that the Quran does not have any inherent discrepancies that cannot be reconciled, and we find that only those who make tadabbur of the Quran will be able to truly appreciate this. As for those people who recite the Quran superficially, then in their minds they will find many discrepancies. But that is only because they have not made tadabbur and understood the Quran properly. And from this ayah we obviously take the lesson that it is vital for us to make tadabbur of the Quran, so that the Quran is not just recited parrot fashion like, but rather you stop at every ayah and absorb it and understand the meaning and the lessons that the ayah is conveying to you. We also find that human efforts will always have some deficiency to them, and that's just what it is to be human. You're going to have some deficiency in your work, and you can always tell when some people try to pass themselves off as prophets and they write their scriptures and so on. Just looking at their scriptures you can tell it is man-made, because it simply does not have this divine flow to it, and it will be full of ideas which are contrary to the fitrah of the human being. It will have paganism almost certainly in it, just like you find in the Bible. And generally speaking, the problems would be clear-cut to see. We also take the fairly obvious lesson that the Quran is from Allah Jalla wa Ala. It is His speech. And what follows from this is that the Quran is not created, because the attributes of Allah Jalla wa Ala are in following Allah Jalla wa Ala. So if Allah is not created, which is obvious, then His attributes also are not created, and speech is from His attributes. Thus His speech is also not created, therefore the Quran is not created. In opposition to what the people of Bid'ah say, that the Quran is a creation of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Ayah number 83. وَإِذَا جَاءَهُمْ أَمْرٌ مِّنْ الْأَمْنِ أَوْ الْخَوْفِ أَذَاعُوا بِهِ وَلَوْ رَدُّوهُ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ وَإِلَى أُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْهُمْ لَعَلِمَهُ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنبِطُونَهُ مِنْهُمْ. وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ لَاتَّبَعْتُمْ الشَّيْطَانَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. He says, when there comes to them an amr, a matter, min al-amn, from safety, meaning concerning safety, or al-khawf, or fear, أَذَاعُوا بِهِ, they publicize it. Okay, what is the context of this ayah? The munafiqun would be extremely hasty in speaking about matters. When the Prophet would send out an army detachment, a sariyah, then this army detachment might win the battle or it might lose the battle. The munafiqun would be extremely eager to find out about the results, because it's not like they would ever set out to fight. And when some news would come to them, they would publicize it. Rather, what is upon them to do is to refer it to the Prophet and to have it confirmed. So a matter of safety would be that the Muslim army or army detachment winning the war and winning the war booty. A matter of khawf, of fear, would be that the Muslim army have lost and maybe some of them have been killed in the battle. So with regards to these types of affairs, you should not just open your big mouth and start publicizing the matter. You need to confirm these things, first of all. And then secondly, it may not be a good idea to speak about these matters. Let the people in authority and people of sound mind, let them speak about it if it is appropriate to be spoken about. So this is why Allah says, but if they had radduhu, referred it to the messenger or to the ulil amr, these are the people of authority. What it refers to here are people of sound knowledge and experience and opinion, because it is only people of sound knowledge and experience and opinion that are fitting to be in positions of authority. You cannot just have a 15-year-old in a position of authority. He's not going to have the sufficient knowledge and the experience and the sound opinion on matters. He says, لَعَلِمَهُ, the lam is because of the law, الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنْبِطُونَهُ مِنْهُمْ. لَعَلِمَهُ, they would have known it, meaning the matter pertaining to safety or fear. They would have understood it properly instead of spreading baseless rumors. الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنْبِطُونَهُ, يَسْتَنْبِطُونَ means to extract something. يَسْتَنْبِطُونَهُ, they would extract the proper understanding of this matter or this news which has come to the community regarding safety or fear. يَسْتَنْبِطُونَ comes from the word An-Nabat. An-Nabat is the first water when you dig up a well. The well can last you for years and water can be extracted from the well for many, many years. But the first water which is extracted from the well, this water is called An-Nabat. And so Yastanbituna has this idea of extracting the ruling, just like you may extract this water from the well. He says minhum, meaning from them, as in from the people who have referred the matter to the people of knowledge and sound understanding. So this is to say that the people of proper knowledge and understanding and sound opinion, they would know what matters are worth speaking about and what matters are worth not speaking about. And they would have known what matter is authentic and what is not authentic. All of this needs to be taken into account before you open your mouth. So firstly, you need to ascertain what is authentic and what is not authentic. Afterwards, you need to ascertain that even if it is authentic, is it still worth speaking about or not? These are all considerations which need to be undertaken, but you cannot do it if you do not have the proper knowledge and the proper experience and the proper knack for knowing what to speak about and what not to speak about. Most people speak because they can, and this is wrong. Very often the best choice is to keep quiet. Then he goes on to say, had it not been for the fadl, for the grace of Allah and His rahmah, His mercy upon you, and we have spoken about fadl and rahmah before, had it not been for those two, you would have followed a shaitan, except a small number of you. So this includes things like you would have remained upon your shirk and your ignorance. He says, illa qalila, except a few of you. So some may understand this to be except a few of you from the companions. Another interpretation is except a few of you, referring to those people who were upon Tawheed before the Prophet was commissioned as a prophet, such as Waraqah ibn Nawfal and such as Zayd ibn Amr. Both of these, incidentally, the Prophet testified Jannah for. So reflecting on this ayah, we may take the noble quality of keeping your mouth shut, especially in regard to vital public matters of safety and fear and so on. We find this rule nowadays being violated more than ever. In the digital age, people can spread rumors immensely quickly, and it can reach the other side of the globe within seconds due to the internet access that people have. And so you find them spreading non-verified nonsense, either deliberately or non-deliberately. In either case, it is not an excuse. You need to verify these matters, and then you need to decide if it's worth speaking about them or not. And so fake news has become a big deal in the modern day. We also take that this ayah can be used to show that qiyas may be employed in extracting rulings, because istinbat is about extracting rulings. But if the ruling is given to you in a clear-cut hadith or clear-cut ayah, then there will be nothing to extract. So qiyas enables us to extract ruling, and therefore can be used. And finally, we also take the extreme grace and mercy of Allah Jalla wa Ala, in that He has grace and mercy on us. And were it not for His grace and His mercy, we would all be following a shaitan in his misguided ways. So we realize from this that you being a Muslim and practicing the deen of Islam is not because you are someone special. No, it is only a gift given to you by Allah Jalla wa Ala, for which you must express gratitude. هذا والله أعلم.